Hello everyone, with a new league out and new patch in, we have seen some very interesting changes in terms of meta builds. Let's go over my starter build. With the new buffs to Cyclone, channeling skills, and champion, I have decided to do a crit Impale fortification champion build. This is the Saw Blade champion Cyclone build.
Withstand the sea. Claim your inheritance. I die for the end.
Maven, the challenge begins. Your champion will fall. Simulacrum, Astral Avalanche. How unexpected.
Duel for my Atlas.
Foolish maiden, come to feed me her champion. Hunger before me. Feast. Hunger without end. Feast. Bash.
This build is decent with great movement speed and DPS with low budget investment. With a couple of chaos, you can start clearing red maps. However, you will definitely need a couple more divs to make it run T17s and pinnacle bosses. This build uses Impale, critical damage, and very high attack speed with over 85% crit chance, 400% crit multiplier, and 15 attacks per second. This build will put the grind on mobs. The main defensive layer of this build is its innate ability to move around while dealing damage. It uses high physical damage reduction, spell suppression, leech, endurance charge, and fortify. While this is not the tankiest build, it has a decent 80k EHP. Since this is a league starter build, I have specifically used low-end gear for accessibility. However, I also included different setup in the POB to give an idea of its potential DPS. Our mandatory items for this build are Terminus Est, a good, cheap, two-handed sword that has a decent DPS, the Perseverance Belt, which gives Onslaught while fortified, and Carnage Heart Onyx Amulet, which gives us a ton of life leech, elemental resistances, and stats. On our amulet, we will anoint Kinetic Impact for DPS. The next items we will need are 2 Amethyst Rings with decent elemental resistances and flat life. Here you want an open prefix so you can craft channeling skills have -3 to total mana cost. This will help with our mana sustain. The next items are our helmet, gloves, boots, and body armor. You can use Abysses to get more crit multiplier in exchange for additional physical damage to you. I wouldn't recommend this, but it is an option nonetheless. On these items, we want to get as much resistance as possible to cap our resistances. We also want to get high life rolls. We will also need some spell suppression to cap it. Lastly, get items with high armor rolls to help cap our physical damage reduction. With implicit modifiers, we want attack damage and reduce mana cost of attacks on our helmet. We want spell suppression, attack speed, or critical strike chance on our gloves. On our boots, we want life regeneration and drop brittle ground while moving. Physical damage taken as element, pride effect, or increase to non-aura effect on our body armor. With our jewels, we want to get crit multiplier, attack speed, and life. We also want one jewel with a corrupted blood immunity implicit. We will also be using Lethal Pride Timeless Jewel under Calm. While this is not mandatory, this will provide us extra fortification and other useful nodes around its influence area. Please use the Timeless Jewel calculator to find the seed best for you. We want to get as many fortification as possible. For our flasks, we need Lion's Roar for its armor and DPS buffs, a Diamond Flask for its quick chance, and an Enduring Mana Flask to keep our mana in check. You can replace the Mana Flask later on when you can sustain mana through Leech and mana cost reductions. Other flasks we will use are a Life Flask, Amethyst Flask, and a Jade Flask. Before we move on to the gem setup, let's look at the key mechanics we will be using. Impale is a debuff that is applied to an enemy through physical hit. Each hit will restore 10% of unmitigated damage from the originating hit, which is then activated by the following hit that also store its own 10% damage. To put it simply, with 100% chance to impale on hit, one hit will store 10% of that damage. The second hit will then activate that stored damage while also stacking and storing its own 10% damage. The next hit will then activate the two stacked impales, dealing the stored 20% damage, while again storing another 10% damage. The next hit will then activate the 3 stacks of impales, which is now 30%, while stacking another 10% from its own hit. This repeats indefinitely as long as you deal an impaling hit on the impaled enemy, with a cap of 7 impale hits, which is 70% stored damage. The impaled stacks do not reset back to 0 as long as you keep hitting them with impaling hits for 8 seconds. And this is where our massive crit and attack speed from Rage and Frenzy comes in. To keep a long story short, we want to deal as high damage as quickly as possible to store massive damage and activate this stored damage as often as possible. In our build, we will crit almost always and we will reach the impale stacks in half a second, with the next attacks activating all impales. Defensively, we have 80% physical damage reduction, elemental and chaos resistance cap, 90% spell suppression, and 58% evasion chance. This is then complemented by 4 endurance charges and 29 fortification stacks. Endurance charge provides 4% damage reduction per charge, while Fortify reduces damage hits from enemies per fortification instances. With 4 endurance charge giving 16% damage reduction and 29 fortification stacks giving another 29% damage reduction, we will be mitigating a lot of damage. Here is a breakdown of how the build handles different types of incoming damage, using a standard 10,000 base hit as reference. Each calculation takes into account all active mitigation and avoidance layers, including armor, resistances, fortify, endurance charges, infused channeling, spell suppression, and evasion. Moving on to our gem skill setup, our main skill is Cyclone of Tumult, linked to Impale, melee physical damage, brutality, close combat, and infused channeling. You can use normal Cyclone if you don't have Cyclone of Tumult. The build will still work but with lower DPS. Here, melee physical damage and brutality gives us a huge damage boost, while close combat gives us damage and huge attack speed. Similarly, infused channeling gives damage while also providing incoming damage reduction from hits while channeling. Lastly, Impale is our bread and butter. This support gem provides Impale chance and increased Impale effect. Next is our aura setup. We want Pride, Blood and Sand, Herald of Purity linked to Enlightened level 3. Enlightened is optional here. We will also be using Flesh and Stone. If you have Enlightened, you can also use a mid-level Precision Aura for the added crit chance. If not, then remove the Precision Aura. We will also be using Val Haste during boss fight to push our attack speed to 16 per second. We won't be using the normal Haste Aura though. Next is Assassin's Mark, link to life tap, and mark on hit for power charge generation. This mark will give us crit chance and crit multiplier on marked enemies. Next is War Banner. This gives us physical damage per Valor when we place the banner during boss fights. We will also be using Val Molten Shell linked to cast when damage taken to activate it when we are on a pinch. Lastly, we have Leap Slam linked to Momentum and Endurance Charge on melee stun to generate endurance charges. For the skill tree, the POB have been set up to have a low budget version and an endgame version for the item, gem setup, and skill tree. The skill tree budget version and endgame versions are both level 100. I also included my current item, gem setup, and skill tree to give you an idea where I'm at. Looking closely at the Ascendancy, we will take Master of Metal at level 30 to get damage, followed by Worthy Foe at level 50 for another damage boost. This node will fix our accuracy, making our hits unavoidable to taunted enemies. This is important especially for Impale build, but most importantly, for crit builds. At level 68, we will take Fortitude for defense. At level 80, we will take our final Ascendancy node, Unstoppable Hero. This node will give us defense and DPS since we are stacking fortification charges. We will have a total of 29 fortification, which means we will be benefiting from 9 fortification charges. The POB also have level progression you can follow to help during campaign. In terms of items and gem during campaign, the build doesn't have any mandatory items except for a two-handed sword. If you can get a Tabula Rasa, that will be extremely helpful since you can use the Tabula Rasa till T10 mapping. During campaign until you get Cyclone, you can use Splitting Steel. And lastly, with our mercenaries, you want to get a mercenary with aura and skills that will help you survive. Auras such as Determination, Vitality, and Grace are all great auras. Determination will increase your armor, while Vitality will give you more life regen. Grace is also great as it gives you extra evade chance and damage through Carnage Heart Amulet. The only skill you need to look for in a mercenary is Enduring Cry if you don't have a reliable endurance charge generation, removing the need for you to use your own. And that's it for the build guide. If you enjoyed this build or have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below or share your version of the build. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and thanks for watching and good luck in the league.